The American West, a land steeped in legend brought on by the lawless and rugged time that drove many into its untamed wilderness in search of riches and opportunity. Today, in the heart of Colorado, sits its capital city, the hub of commerce and entertainment of the region. Those in the 31st century know its remnants as Devil's Greif, but today we know it simply as Denver. Before the arrival of Europeans, for centuries the region that Denver now sits was used as vast hunting grounds for native peoples such as the Anasazi, establishing villages and organized agriculture as well. Though the Spanish first explored the area in the 16th century, Europeans didn't begin to settle in the region until the 1800s. This colonization began once word had gotten out that gold had been discovered in the Platte River as well as Pikes Peak, or more commonly known to us in Horizons community as All Mother Mountain. As settlers began to arrive in droves, the displacement of native peoples began, in particular the Arapaho tribe. Though treaties were struck, more often than not, they were not honored. What began as relocations turned violent, and after the Sand Creek Massacre, where hundreds of Arapaho and Cheyenne peoples were cut down, these tribes left Colorado, or what was then still considered Kansas, altogether, a shameful event that unfortunately was not uncommon during the era of Western expansion. In 1856, the town of St. Charles was founded on what was once a tribal village on the Platte River to serve as a supply center for those mining the region. The town would later be renamed in honor of James W. Denver, governor of the Kansas Territory, to Denver City, and was incorporated in 1861. Despite the gold boom ending relatively quickly, some who had come chose to stay, making Denver their home. 1870 brought transportation via railway, ensuring steady growth to the fledgling city. And in 1876, when Colorado received statehood, Denver was named the capital of the 38th state of the Union. Gold may have run dry in Denver, but the city would see a second rush of wealth as many in the 1880s couldn't resist the call of the Rockies, this time for silver. Wealthy barons built extravagant Victorian-style mansions in the city, turning Denver into the most sophisticated city in the West. But as before, all booms must come to an end. Once the silver market crashed, the city was forced to diversify in order to survive, developing livestock, agriculture, and tourism markets. Denver's development slowed up to the 1830s, just prior to the Second World War. It was at this point in U.S. history when the United States federal government established agencies such as the U.S. Mint and Lowry Air Force Base that allowed Denver to once again enjoy another population surge that lasted over the next 20 years. The 1960s would bring the suburban sprawl to Denver, as many sought life outside the bustling city. Regardless of a minor population slump, the 80s gave the city much of its signature skyline, as the new high-rises began to populate the city center. Now in the 21st century, Denver represents the commercial, industrial, and financial hub of the Rocky Mountain region. Obviously in Horizon's present day, however, only the shell of the once prosperous city remains. Though much has been lost, some of Denver's future landmarks have endured the relentless test of time, such as the Daniels and Fisher's Clock Tower that has graced the city's skyline since 1911. Modeled after the Campanile of St. Mark's Square in Venice, Italy, at the time of its construction, it was the tallest structure west of the Mississippi River. After the department store that it was built to adorn was eventually destroyed, preservation efforts in the 1970s saved the Denver landmark, a feat that has seen its remnants endure into Horizon's 31st century. Interestingly, one of the defining aspects of the sprawling ruins of the Old World has yet to come to pass. The proposed luxury skyscraper is said to be over 75 stories and would be the tallest building in Denver's skyline. Evidently, according to Horizon, Denver may yet grow again before the end of the world. As with most left from those of the 21st century, what is known among the Nora as Devil's Greif is but a shadow of its former glory. The remnants of Interstate 25 are now a graveyard for the cars that once shipped people in droves in and out of the city. Stores and playgrounds have been claimed by nature as the city itself slowly returns to the earth it was built upon. Due to Nora traditions and beliefs, the city has remained relatively untouched for generations, hidden away from delvers' prying eyes behind the tribal border. Unfortunately, its solemn peace did not last forever. Before the red raids of the Mad Sun King, the 12 outlanders responsible for the death of Roth's family and much of his village took refuge past its accursed borders before fleeing back to the Karja Sundom. More recently, the Cult of the Eclipse fortified the area for their own nefarious purposes, before being eventually defeated by the war party led by War Chief Sona and Aloy herself. After the events of the Looming Shadow, this place may find itself more accessible to the Nora than ever before. as all those who left the sacred land in defense of Meridian and the Spire were given the mark of a seeker, offering protection from the corrupted lands beyond their borders and the tainted ruins of the old ones. For those who survived, this may mean that they may no longer be forbidden from these places as before. However, if able, I'm not so sure how many devout to All-Mother would choose to venture into Devil's Grief by their own free will. What the future looks like for those tribes who united to fend off the second apocalypse, nothing is certain, nor is the fate of the lands those people call home. For us in the 21st century, Denver remains a historic city steeped in the history of the American West, and for our descendants in the 31st, it lingers as a memory of a lost and forgotten age. But if one thing is sure, the story of Devil's Grief is not one that has been completely told. And that brings our journey to an end. If you'd like to see more content like this, likes and shares are always appreciated, and if you really like what we're doing at the channel, come join our community and hit that subscribe button. Also consider supporting the channel on Patreon to help us create new series and tackle new projects just like this. Check out the link in the description. And as always, thanks for watching and keep questing.